Hey, Wellspring. This is a tough video, and literally just paused to pray before the video because there's a world of emotions. Never, when we started this church, did we think that we would be shooting a video like this. In fact, I had at one point asked God, "Hey, I want to die at Wellspring," and but God has redirected us, and so that's the point of this video. I know you guys are either you're on social media or you saw it in the text message, YouTube, whatever it might be. But perhaps you even read the whole email if you're reading this on email or watching this on email and you've already read it. But Ava and I have accepted a call, accepted a job offer in New Hampshire, and to kind of backtrack, we got a call. We did not seek this out. We were not looking to leave Wellspring. In fact, kind of throughout this whole process, it has just been so clear what a blessing Wellspring is. The people, the leadership, what a blessing. And so May 1st, I got a phone call from a church, and just to kind of shoot the breeze, it's the same church that gave us $50,000 back in the day through our infamous omelet prayer story. And so they had mentioned starting they use a different word for campus. They use the word outpost, but for our purposes, a campus in or around my hometown. And I kind of asked about that, and it's live preaching. It's taking money and loving on a community. I was like, oh man, like I was made for that. And my parents go to this church, and so the next day their leadership talked and then asked Ava if we would we give this really consideration. And I spoke with Graeme. And went on a month-long process of talking with them, praying about this, fasting about this. And so we asked them actually for a really fast process that would just really focus in on, is God in this? Because if God's in this, then the details can work itself out. We want to be obedient. We don't really care about a pros and cons list, because if the only pro is God, we're in. If the only con is God's not in it, then we're not doing it. So with all that being said, last Wednesday I signed a contract. I signed a written offer, and so our family is moving up to New Hampshire. My last day preaching will be July 14th, and then I'll be starting up there in the middle of August. And so that is the really tough news. And for us, the emotions really, the way we've described it, the way I've been describing it to people is, Wellspring is truly the biggest blessing in my life. Short of God and marriage and kids. So it's on the list. This really feels like Abraham sacrificing Isaac, and just saying, like, I know God's in this, but it requires sacrifice. And so that's the emotions for us. This is following Jesus, and it's hard. So a question that you might be wondering right now is, what's next for Wellspring? And so first, that same passage with Abraham and Isaac, verse 5 or something like that, Isaac's like, hey, I see the wood, I see all this, but where's the animal for the sacrifice? And Abraham's response is, God will provide. And so as that passage has meant a lot to me, is kind of my emotions and kind of what Abraham must have been feeling in that journey. I want to start with that, like, God will provide. I trust that through the pain, and I hope you trust that through the pain. But along the way, we've been deeply talking with Pastor Ritter from Bayside Chapel. He preached when I went up to New Hampshire to talk with them that weekend. We know him. He was the one that dreamed up this whole thing through prayer and prayed us into this. And so Pastor Ritter is going to work with us on developing the search committee process. He's going to help us through that process. He's also going to preach once a month. Bayside Chapel has agreed to preach once a month as well. So that's 2 Sundays a month, covered by some dear friends. Very thank you, Pastor Ritter, to when you watch this into Bayside. And then we've reached out to a handful of people to fill in some of the spots beyond that, and so we're working on that. But you're going to see this on June 9th, and so on June 10th, you'll see a page of our website that says Lead Pastor Search. And we're going to start aggressively starting this process, and hopefully it's not a long process, but we do trust God through the process. And so just know, like, those are the plans, those are the details. As you guys watch this Wednesday, I guess it would be the 12th, as many elders that can make it will be with me at 6:30 here in this room before prayer to talk with people. And then we'll be staying after service on, I guess it's the 16th, Father's Day. We'll be staying after service to talk with people as well. But some other dates before I ask you a question is on the 23rd, we have a gathering. Please come hang out with me. On the 26th, we have baptism. And so if you've never been baptized, would you allow me the honor to go public with your faith and allow me to baptize you before this transition? That's on Wednesday, the 26th. And then lastly, like I said, my last Sunday will be July 14th. And so we scheduled our July gathering for that evening. Just bring your best dish, whatever, just bring your best. Just bring your best. So those are some dates to put before you. But you said you didn't want to talk. And so we agreed before this, the one question I get to ask you is just looking into the camera and telling people how they can be praying for us.
Sure. Just some ways that you can be praying for our family is, I will need a job. And so we're trusting God with that and knowing that He will provide, because we're at peace with the calling. And pray for our housing situation. We'll need a house. And so if you could pray for that. And then
we'll also need to sell our house.
Sell our house. And then just pray for our children as they transition and start new lives up in New Hampshire with new friends, and just pray for them. And Wellspring, you are the greatest joy of our life. We have walked alongside you, and it's been an honor to pray with you and to serve you. And Wellspring, we love you so much.
There really is no easy transition out of this video, but I know that Graeme wanted to say a few words. He couldn't physically be here, and so he shot a video to kind of splice into it. Kayla's magic, making it all seem like one video. Now a word from Graeme. All right, love you.
Hey, Wellspring Church, it is Graeme, and I wanted to quickly speak on behalf of the elder team. I wanted to just unpack the video we just watched from Pastor Jason and Ava. First off, you might be watching that, and honestly, again, we're being honest, there might be a feeling of shock, of what is going on, just so many questions rushing through your head right now of what's going to happen with them, what's going to happen with the church, what's going to happen with the place that I call home, all those things. And so I wanted to really quickly hop on and share with you from my heart, and I know I speak on behalf of the elder team here at Wellspring. First off, no, that we fully support Pastor Jason and Ava. Pastor and Jason and Ava have served so well here at Wellspring. And we have said from day one, all we want to do as a church and as leaders and as people, as followers of Jesus, we want to be obedient to whatever God has for us. And after much prayer and after seeing what God has been doing in Jason and Ava's heart, we believe that Pastor Jason and Ava are following the call that God has for them. And yes, it's sad, and yes, man, I mean, Jason's my friend, and I'm like, Jason, what's going on? Where are you going? But I am so thankful that we have a pastor that is willing to sacrifice and willing to follow the call that God has for them. So know that I'm excited for Pastor Jason and Ava because I know they are following the will of God for their life. They are following the new calling that they have on their life. But I also want to say to you and I, for those that call Wellspring home, there's lots of questions. What is going to happen? What are we going to do? And so a couple of practical things I want to share with you. First, the minute we heard the news, we met with Pastor Dave Ritter from Bayside Chapel and said, Pastor Dave, we've never walked through any kind of pastoral transition before. We are a young church. We are a church plant. We're going to need some help at navigating this process. And so Pastor Dave has come alongside us and has committed that through Pastor Dave, Bayside Chapel, and One Vision to walk through us in this process. So we are not alone. Pastor Dave is with us. He's going to help our search committee, which I'll talk about in a moment. And he's also Bayside Chapel is going to help with pulpit supply. So twice a month, someone from Bayside is going to be preaching at Wellspring, which is amazing. But know that we are not alone. And Pastor Dave uniquely has said he's going to walk alongside us to make sure that Wellspring is safe and Wellspring is cared for through this process. The second thing is, this is not a new thing. So many churches have gone through a pastoral transition. And so know that this might feel new to us, but this is something that happens in every church at some point where the lead pastor retires or steps away, and there needs to be a new pastor put in place. So we're not alone. And this isn't something new or unique to Wellspring. The next thing I want to say is there is a plan. And so what we're going to do is, part of our constitution is to form what's called a search committee. And so what we will begin to do is building out a search committee that will be compiled of some of our elders and some of our partners in the church. And what we're going to do is we're going to start taking applications for those interested in maybe being our future pastor here at Wellspring. And there is a formal vetting process that goes through. That search committee will vote on someone saying, hey, we think that this person might be called to be the next pastor at Wellspring Church. Then we'll put that person before our partnership and they will vote on who the future pastor is at Wellspring Church. So that's some practical things. Know that there is a plan. We're going to have preaching from Bayside. We're going to have preaching from Wellspring. We're going to have a bunch of outside pastors who are going to be preaching here at Wellspring. So Sundays are going to be filled with amazing voices, amazing men of God who are going to be opening up and preaching God's word. So we are taking care of it in the preaching. We have a search committee that's going to start meeting, and the elder teams are supportive of Jason, and this is not new. The last thing I want to say is I remember sitting in the living room of Jason and Ava when it was just, 8 to 12 of us, praying that God would do something special in Toms River. Before Wellspring was even a thing, before there was even a building, before there even was a group of people, we prayed that God would do something through this church. And I saw that group of 8 to 12 people turn to 20 people, turn to a launch day that had 700 people at it. I've seen people get baptized. I've seen people come to know the Lord. I've seen salvations. I've seen life change. You are a part of that life change. Every step of the way, God's hand has been on this church. There have been so many things that happened through the years that, humanly speaking, I don't know if Wellspring should still be in existence, if I'm being honest. But God's hand has been on this church. And through this process, I know without a shadow of a doubt that God's hand is still on Wellspring Church. So I have complete faith that God is going to walk us through this process. I have complete faith that we have a God who is in control, a sovereign God, a God who loves us, that cares for us, and does not leave us alone. And so if you're nervous right now, if you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I'm trusting the Lord. Our elder team is trusting in the Lord. Our leadership team is trusting the Lord. And I want you to trust the Lord as well, that the mission that God has called Wellspring Church to is not over. In fact, I believe our best days are yet to come. So here's how you can help. If you have questions, if you're like, I have a burning question, reach out to Pastor Jason. Reach out to myself, reach out to the elder team. We would love to answer any questions you have. The second thing, and the most important thing you can do, is pray. Pray that God would bring the right person to our church to help pastor Wellspring into the future. Pray for that person's family and that person's heart to already be moving in a way that's drawing them to the calling that God has for them here. Pray for our church, pray for protection, pray for finances, pray for life change, pray that God would still move in our midst, even in a season of transition. I believe our best days are ahead. This church was never Jason's. This church was never mine. It never was the elder team. It never was a leadership team. This is God's church. And I believe that God's hand is on this church. And it says the gates of hell will not come against his church. So let's see what God does. Exciting days are ahead. And I can't wait to see. I hope you're with me.